Just going to let's see. It needs to be here. Okay. Okay, so I'm curious. I was looking at I watched the last one. And I had some thoughts about it, took the survey. So I'm kind of wondering what's going to happen with the next stuff. Cuz apparently they're about to drop new playtest material tomorrow. So I kind of want to get like an idea of what I'm going to be like looking into tomorrow while I'm at work. So let's see where we are. So this is called Unearthed Arcana expert classes. So I'm curious to see what are they going to delve into in this next 20 minutes or so.
Hello everyone, we have a brand new Unearthed
And it's buffering. Why?
Arcana. We have classes, subclasses, we have feats, conditions, we have new rules having to do with skill checks and attack rolls, as well as...
Oh. Apparently I need to down. Why is it interfering? I don't know. You tell me. I love technical difficulties. It was playing earlier. Broke the video? Yes, I did. This is my power.
how a critical hit functions. So let's just delve in right now and have an overview of
crap.
all of that.
This Unearthed Arcana is filled with things I can't wait for people to play test. We're playing testing them internally here at Wizards, and leading the pack in this playtest for the classes are the Ranger, the Bard, and the Rogue. People are going to see in the...
Okay, that's interesting. Those three classes are the most skill dependent, or the most feature dependent. Like they have a lot of features and stuff like that. So I'm interested to see what they are going to end up looking like in the next edition of D&D.
Next few months, all of the classes from the 2014 Player's Handbook are going to appear in Unearthed Arcana so that people can read them, give feedback, play test them. Following after that, you're going to see a series of Unearthed Arcanas that also unveil new versions of subclasses, as well as some brand new subclasses for those classes. The total number of subclasses when all is said and done, 48. So we have a lot of
48? That's gonna be a big book. I'm gonna move this. That's gonna be a big book
to try out. But today,
what in the heck? Bigger than my ego. It's a lot of their egos, I think. Hold on. I close this for a second. So why is it freaking out? here. Hold on. It's freaking out for some reason. I'm gonna close it and open it back up. It's freaking out for some reason. Let me...
Hello, everyone.
Today, we're focused on our friends, the Bard, the Ranger, and the Rogue, along with, as you mentioned, a bunch of feats.
There we go.
Because each of these classes, like all of the classes in the game, has the option at certain levels.
Oh, is it just being in...
taking feats.
Okay, it's just being in full screen mode that's messing it up.
Improvement feat, which many fans rightly predicted is what was going to be coming. And sure enough, when you reach any of the levels that in the past where you would have gotten the ability score improvement
Oh, wait, hold on.
of, like, focused on our friends, the Bard, the Ranger, and the Rogue, along with, as you mentioned, a bunch of feats, because each of these classes, like all of the classes in the game, has the option at certain levels of taking feats.
I know I have a bunch of tabs.
The new ability score improvement feat, which many fans rightly predicted is what was going to be coming, and sure enough.
Okay, so the ability score improvement feature that was innate is becoming a feat. Okay.
When you reach any of the
So are they going back to... You're good. I didn't mean it. So are they going back? Are they going to go back to like 3.5 tables for the most part, with like there's just a bunch of bonus feats that happen at specific levels for each class?
levels that in the past where you would have gotten the ability score improvement feature, now you have the option of taking the ability score improvement feat, does exactly the same thing as the ability score improvement feature in the 2014 Player's Handbook, or you can take another feat of your choice. If your group is deciding to go beyond the ability score improvement feat and the first level feat that you're getting from your background in the previous Unearthed Arcana. This UA also includes the Arcane, Divine, and Primal spell lists all the way up to level 9, and it includes a rules glossary that is filled with even more treasures than the previous one. And here I want to pause a little bit and talk about how do you use these Unearthed Arcanas together? Because now that we have 2 out as a part of the 1 D&D playtest,
well,
we would love for people to play using material from multiple 1 D&D Unearthed Arcanas. The one main thing to keep in mind as people playtest is that the rules glossary of each UA supersedes the rules glossaries of any previous 1 D&D UAs. So we'd love for you to take the character origin options from the previous UA, combine them with the classes and feats in this UA, but use only the rules glossary from the new Unearthed Arcana. Because over the course of the next year and a half, we're going to...
And that's basically like, that's just common sense for the most part, because I think they're, as far as mechanics and features go, the material itself that is in question for the playtest, I'm assuming that you are supposed to treat it as though it was like segments of a book. So that's basically what he's in a roundabout saying, with like more words, obviously. But as far as the, yes, the glossary and the rules of the new one is more important for the than the previous one. Don't ask about this art. You're good.
To try out different versions of core rules and then see what people think of those different versions. A great example of this is how we're handling critical hits.
Yes.
So you and I, in our video last time, talked about the fact that the previous Unearthed Arcana had a rule that we knew was very experimental,
Right.
and had a good chance of not being what the community was going to cheer for, but we were interested in seeing what do people think, because there were some angles to that rule that we were fascinated in seeing how can this serve the game.
And for those that probably didn't see the previous one, though, the rule in which he's referring to in terms of like critical hits was that only player characters could get critical hits, and it only applied if you used a weapon or an unarmed strike, if you were like a monk or something. So you couldn't get any spell-based crits that used an attack roll. And I'm assuming that that was like ratioed to hell, because I don't think anybody in the community liked that as a concept or an idea, especially the DMs or the GMs, depending on how you go about doing it. Yeah, so there's that. And so they're walking that back, at least, but that was probably the only rules based thing that they were, I think, iffy on. I think the vast majority of the rules in the first Unearthed Arcana are concrete. I don't think those are going to change. I think if I had to take a guess, they're going to revamp the critical hits to what it was currently in 5th edition, and I think they might be like messing around with inspiration, since that was seemingly an experiment as well. I like that. I like that that one with the looks like the mug or the cast. I like that one. That looks pretty cool. Kai's in my chat posting emotes.
We've already seen some of the responses, and you're going to see this time that for the current version of the playtest, we are using the critical hit rule as it exists in the 2014 Player's Handbook.
So they're rolling it back. Okay.
Again, make sure, if you're playtesting and everyone else is playtesting, read the new rules glossary, where you'll also see that we are experimenting with different rules this time around for the D20 test. This time we don't have the universal rule of a 20 always succeeding and a 1 always failing. Instead, we are playing around with some other approaches. Although there, you're also going to find a familiar phrase.
But wait, he said something.
20 always succeed. Is playtesting, read the new rules glossary, where you'll also see that we are experimenting with different rules this time around for the D20 test. This time we don't have the universal rule of a 20 always succeeding.
So I think they're rolling back on that. So for people that didn't watch the first video or read the playtest, so the D20 test was a relegated term that encompassed all anything that was associated with a D20 roll, being it an attack roll, ability check, or a saving throw. Instead of having, and it's sort of like a housekeeping thing, but at the same time, terminology is important. So they would, instead of just saying each of those individually, as far as like if a feature would mention all three, they basically made up a term called the D20 test to encompass all three of those things. And I don't know if they're going to back down on that, because I did not particularly like the terminology of that, because I felt like it would be being more vague and open, like open-ended in terms of like features and mechanics, I think breeds confusion. So specific terminology I think is important, and that's the particular reason why I didn't like it. I'm sure there's other reasons that other people have used, but I don't know if anybody's ever, the couple people that I've watched in terms of like actual like optimizing builds, I don't think anybody had a negative opinion on that, on the D20 test, except for me. So yeah, it's whatever. I'll see how this goes from here, I suppose.
And a one always failing. Instead, we are playing around with some other approaches. Although there, you're also going to find a familiar friend in that we're largely using the 2014 version of the rule, with the catch that this time we're testing rolling a 1 on a D20, giving you inspiration.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because we basically have 3 different modes we are.
Okay, guys. They're definitely pushing this inspiration mechanic to be a thing. And if anybody has played the 5th edition D&D, inspiration it's basically like just a special resource that you get during the campaign that lets you get advantage on an attack roll, ability check, or a saving throw. It's bleh. You get it for either good role playing or doing something heroic or what have you. But originally it was a resource that only DMs could give out, and they're definitely like putting it more in the player's hands with this one. I think give the players more of a reason to use inspiration, like having like features that actually like use it, whether it be a racial trait or a class feature, that if you have inspiration, you can spend it to make the feature pop off. I think is the better incentive to doing that. That's just my opinion. I think just advantage is pointless, because there's so many situations and combat situations and conditions and so on and so forth that just give you inspiration, or that just gives you advantage. So it's pointless to have a feature that just that is a resource that gives it to you. But there's some situations where you can't get it, and it's kind of good to have that in the bag. But let us have a feature that just lets us use inspiration for a big payoff. That makes people want to actually role play and actually like learn how to use their class features, is to give them a cool thing that happens. That's just me as a player and as a DM.
Looking at for getting inspiration in play. Last time we asked everyone to try out getting it when you roll a 20. This time we're asking you to try it out when you roll a 1. We also, in the previous Unearthed Arcana, had another mode in the human of getting inspiration when you finish a long rest. We've actually considered having that as a potential rule for everybody, but right now we want to try out the roll a 1 rule for everybody, and then humans have the special feature of getting it at the end of a long rest.
Right.
Now, speaking of humans and the other,
Which in the previous playtest material, if you rolled a natural 20, which is the highest you can roll for any check, in the previous playtest rules, they were making it natural 20s were an automatic success for everything, and they were basically like, and if you roll a natural 20, you get inspiration too, which it's like, okay, just a huge pop off in terms of like things that you can do as to what you could do. You could also give inspiration to somebody else if you already have one, but it's a little much. But now in this playtest rules, they're trying to basically soften the blow of a natural 1. And already there's like some conflict there, because there are some classes, or there's some races that can't roll a 1 theoretically. So like the halfling, they have the lucky feature. If they roll a natural 1, they can immediately roll another d20 and take that roll instead. So it actually mitigates, like that's a race that could potentially never get inspiration outside of, you know, good role playing and good tactical combat. So there's already an issue there, so you just got to think about that. Keep that in mind. I mean, there's probably some DMs that will probably change it so that it's not going to screw over those particular ones, but rules as written, that could be something that could hinder that experience. There's probably going to be a lot of people that will probably not be playing halflings during the next batches of playtest because of that.
content in the previous Unearthed Arcana, the survey for that UA is still open, and the response has been tremendous. As of today, over 40,000 people have completed the survey. We'll see how many more people have completed it by the time.
Well, as of this recording, would be more accurate.
We are then going to go into our investigation of what has everyone said about the different options that were in that UA. We will look at all of the satisfaction scores. And then in a future video, you and I will get together and we'll talk about what did people say. And then at a future point in this journey we're on together, we'll present a new version of that Unearthed Arcana incorporating people's feedback. That's going to be the cycle that we're all in together during this long playtest. Just like we did in D&D Next, we're going to present something, we're going to get the feedback back, we'll analyze it, we'll do a new version incorporating feedback, and then we'll get feedback on that new version until, in a few years' time, the game coalesces into the new core books.
We're also going to have several videos all about this Unearthed Arcana that will go a little bit more in depth. It is important to remember, like, we have had a record-breaking amount of people download the playtest. We are very excited.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Watching this video, please remember, like,
40,000 is a lot of reviews.
Networks, but what will really help us in the end is if you download the playtest and then take the survey that comes out and leave your feedback. That is how you help us sculpt the future of D&D together.
Yeah, filling out that survey is the best way to have an impact on where this is heading. Now, in addition to responding to what we see there, we're also going to continue to do experiments. So I mentioned we are dealing with the D20 test and getting inspiration differently this time. That's just simply our design process proceeding. That's not even in response to the feedback yet because the survey is still open.
Right.
So people are going to get to see not only new versions of things that we've heard from the community that they would like to see, you're also going to see new versions of things based on our own internal playtesting and also just different versions of mechanics we want to try out. This is a playtest, and part of that is testing out sometimes multiple versions of things to see which one on its own resonates most for all of us as DMs and players of this game, and then even further, which options sync up well with the other pieces of the game, because D&D is a game with hundreds, if not thousands of moving parts, and we want to make sure that if anything shifts, things are really running together in a way that's going to make people feel in the end, this game is exactly what I want it to be. So this time around, what we're asking people to look at are these classes, which also are framed in a way that is new for the current version of the game.
Let's go ahead and dig into the classes then. So we've got 3 of the classes here, and then we've got subclasses attached. So tell me about what's changed.
So I'll probably actually do a video on YouTube for the playtest material. To like review what, since it's coming out tomorrow, I'll be reviewing a little bit of that maybe on YouTube. I'm still like figuring out what I'm doing with that channel. So that's going to be something I'll be looking into. But I'm curious to see what they're doing with this.
So one of the first things is that framing that is going to be new for people. And that is that these 3 classes are presented as experts. So people are going to see in this Unearthed Arcana that the 12 classes of the Player's Handbook, as well as the Artificer, who, while not in the Player's Handbook, gets mentioned in this UA, each of these classes is now a part of a group in this playtest.
Okay, so basically he's saying that they're creating basically like umbrella terms for groups, like for the classes, and now, so if the bard, the rogue, and the ranger are considered the experts, what are the other groups that you think are going to be maybe like obviously mage would probably be like an umbrella, maybe mage might be an umbrella term, or a caster. I don't know how we'll just see. Maybe he might give some like context clues. Paladin is a class, yeah. Do I have, well, yeah, I do have a YouTube channel. I don't know what to do with it yet.
The ranger, the rogue, and the bard are part of,
aside from archives,
the expert group. So hence the name of this Unearthed Arcana, the expert classes.
Okay.
In future Unearthed Arcanas, you're going to see the other class groups featured, but we wanted to start with the experts. Now, this new concept of
class group feature. What does that mean?
is something that has appeared in D&D's history at various times, going
Oh, yeah.
all the way back to even the second edition Player's Handbook grouped classes in a similar way. Big
Yeah. So I know in fourth edition they were grouped in terms of like power sources. So there was an arcane power source, there was a martial power source, a divine power source, a psionic power source, and they all sort of like fit in that group. So I'm kind of wondering if that's what they're doing.
question is here, what do these groups mean? The main thing that they do for us is provide a way to deliver groups of classes certain elements of the game collectively. So you're going to see in this very Arcana, some of the feats, for instance, have certain class groups as prerequisites. You'll see a feat where it says you maybe need to be a member of the expert or the warrior group to take this feat.
Okay, expert and warrior.
It allows us to serve up options to multiple classes simultaneously, and also serve classes like the artificer that might not.
So that's gonna be what? Fighter, barbarian, paladin? No. Monk. But I don't think it would you consider monk a warrior in terms of like fantasy? Maybe? Yes.
Be in the same book as the 12 classes that are in the Player's Handbook. Because since we indicate here in this UA that the artificer counts as an expert, that means anything that members of that group qualify for, the artificer qualifies for. And if we were ever to make a new class and put it into one of these groups, then suddenly it is able to tap into the shared tech of that group. You're going to see this in the next year or so, where you'll see magic items that, rather than having a particular class or a particular feature as a prereq, will have one of these groups or multiple groups as a prerequisite. You're also going to see that in many cases, while the classes have retained their distinctiveness and their delightful asymmetry, where they work in the ways that are most appropriate for those individual classes, you're going to see more common pieces. So one example of that in this current Unearthed Arcana is all three of the expert classes have the expertise feature. The expertise feature is the signature feature of experts. And so that means even the ranger now has it. The bard and the rogue already had it in the 2014 Player's Handbook. Well, now the ranger gets it too, because one of the aspects of the ranger's class fantasy is being the best in a group, particularly at things like survival, stealth, so that the ranger can be fantastic at what is iconic for them. And expertise is
you just notice that it's a picture of a dragon.
Another thing that the experts all have in common is that they are polymaths. They like to have pieces within their classes that are reminiscent of things in other groups. So it is by design that all three of the experts have components within them that are reminiscent of things that you might see in the warrior group, the mage group, the priest group, but here mixed together in a way that is unique to each of the expert classes. Now we can dive in to each of the classes individually and their subclasses, but that overview I think is exciting because it shows that we're not only thinking now of the classes as individuals and also then as a whole family, but then also in these subgroups, and we can leverage these groups in a variety of ways.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Priest might be monk and paladin.
In terms of the options that we'll be able to give people, but even when it comes to party building, something we note in this current article is that when you're building a party now, if you want to create sort of a classic balanced D&D party, one way you can do that is make sure you have a member in your group from each of the class groups. Also, something that people are going to see in both the Ranger and the Bard in this Unearthed Arcana is a list of suggested prepared spells. One thing that we have seen over the last 8 years very clearly is that sometimes playing a spellcaster can be a little daunting.
Right.
And so what we've done to make it a bit easier to ease into playing a spellcasting class that you've never played before is we provide from level 1 all the way up to level 20 a set of suggested prepared spells for the class. So again, you're going to see that here in the Bard, you're going to see it in the Ranger, and in future Unearthed Arcanas, when we get to other spellcasting classes, you're going to see it in them as well, where we take some of the most iconic spell options and put them on a list so that, again, whether you're a new player or a veteran who may be just like, I don't feel like making a choice, please, D&D book, tell me, you can go to that class, look at the suggested list of prepared spells, and just start with that. You still have, of course, the option every time you finish a long rest to change that list, but it gives you a nice starting point so that you don't have to do quite as much homework when you decide to dive into a spellcasting class that's new for you.
So ritual spellcasting has changed, or rather people have more access to it now?
Yes, so one of the many goodies in the rules glossary is the simple but important note that we are
this is what I thrive on
currently, that basically if you can cast a spell and it has the ritual tag, you have the option of casting it as a ritual. In the past, a character had to have a feature that specifically unlocked rituals for them, and we've decided to experiment.
You're good. You don't have to be taking notes.
The ability of, again, if you can cast the spell and it has the ritual tag, you have the option of casting it as a ritual, and just have that turned on for spellcasters of all sorts.
And all the classes eventually get...
I think that's actually really neat, honestly. Being at, like, so if a spell also has the capacity to be used as a ritual, that means you can cast it with like an extended spell casting time to basically cast the spell for free. In the current version of the game, that's not all classes can do that. The vast majority of them can, but not all of them can. And I'm curious to see how they're going to handle that. Because that could either be really good or really bad.
We didn't touch upon this. Also can get access to epic feats or epic boons.
That is right. Now, every class, what was previously their 20th level feature, they now get at 18th level. And instead, now at 20th level, those epic boons that are in the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide, you now get one when you hit 20th level. Now, we have a suggested one for each class, but when you hit 20th level, you now get to pick. And those epic boons have been reimagined as feats, and many of them are also available in this Unearthed Arcana.
That's awesome.
Digimon, we should review Digimon themes. I mean, we can. Oh, by the way, how did you get that Guillemon yet? On your virtual bracelet? Oh, well, that was okay, that was it. And yeah. Uh-oh. Don't tell me he died. Oh no. Yeah, so I'll be definitely diving into that, and I'll try and get this uploaded on YouTube as soon as I can, and do some talks about the new playtest material tomorrow. Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see what new stuff is there. And there's also another reason why rangers are in this playtest, because they want to get as much feedback as they can on the ranger as soon as possible, because the ranger is the worst class in 5th edition. I mean, it got some power-ups in the form of like patches and other books, but it's still not that great. So I'm curious to see what sort of mechanics are going to get introduced, not just to the ranger, but apparently anything that gets stuck in or placed into the expert groups are going to get specific boosts or specific features that work within that group. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting, but I will leave that for tomorrow, when I review the new Unearthed Arcana. And with that being said, I'm going to close this out, and I will continue with playing what I was playing before. For YouTube, Arashi out. See you guys later.